Back on the Chamber Report, brand new member of the Chamber of Commerce. His name is Dan Haspert. He is with Northwestern Mutual. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
All right, Northwestern Mutual.
Yes.
What areas do you and your team focus on?
So a lot of advisors and planners typically focus on wealth accumulation, which obviously is incredibly important, and we focus on it too. But we think we can supercharge that by focusing on a couple additional areas, specifically paying less taxes in retirement, because there's nobody who hates paying taxes more than retirees, we found out.
Yep.
But also making sure that we have some strategies in place so that when there's down markets, you can still spend freely, because in retirement, you still have to live your life, right? And then third is just asset spend down strategies, because we're all living longer, and so that means we're going to end up spending more time in retirement. We want to make sure that the money lasts that entire time for you.
All right, so you're talking about retirement, but also life insurance. Obviously, that's a big one on everybody's plate. Should everyone really get life insurance?
That's a good question. I would say there is no right or wrong answer to that. Let's say you're a young person and you say, in the future, I plan to have a partner, I want to have a family, things like that. We know when you're young and healthy, it's less expensive. So it's never the worst idea to get something in place. The main reason, in my opinion, to get something in place is something we call insurability. It's incredibly fragile. It's incredibly difficult. If something happens to you that you now cannot get life insurance, that could have a negative impact on your family down the road. And when we plan, some of what we plan for is you today, but most of what we plan for is you tomorrow. And so if that is the path you think you're going to go on, get something so at least something's there for your family in the future in case something happens.
You know what, and I'm on the older side of this whole thing, and I can remember having conversations with somebody that I dealt with as Brendan and I look toward our future. And when you're younger, it's easy just to think about, everything will be okay. You just never know. And you know, the one thing that really stuck with me as just being me was this: I wanted to make sure my wife was covered. I wanted to make sure my family was covered. I wasn't hoping to have issues. I wanted to make sure that should something happen, that they be covered. And that gave me peace of mind. You know, that was an important thing to me, and maybe it's an important thing for you, and that's where Dan and the crew at Northwestern Mutual can really help you have that discussion, see what fits in your wheelhouse. If that is important to you, they're going to give you some options as to what you can do. Another thing that you got to talk about, and especially if you're a young growing family and you got those kiddos, I'll tell you what, if you're looking at an educational scenario down the road and saving for those kiddos, Dan, I got to believe that's on a plate of a lot of people. And I'll tell you what, as you hear about the cost of school, you don't hear about them going down.
Yeah.
You hear about them going up.
No,
should somebody be playing in that arena?
It's very true, though we're starting to see where people are not necessarily 100% focused on, I want to pay for my child's education. They said, I want to set something up.
Right.
You know, in saving for kids and saving for retirement, there is no magic bullet. There is no single tool that's the right thing for everyone. I'll tell you this, I have an 11-month-old who turns 12 at the end of this, or turns a year at the end of this month, which I'm super excited about. I have what's called a whole life kitty policy for him. So that creates a bucket of money that he will have access to. Many of you have probably heard of the term be your own bank. That is what that comes from, is from a whole life policy. But also, it's that insurability piece that we were just discussing. It just makes sure that no matter what happens to him in his, however many years he's going to be around, that he will always have life insurance for his family down the road. Yeah. When we plan generationally. So I'm thinking about his kids and his kids' kids, because that's how much of an impact something like that could have down the road. So I like a whole life kitty policy for that reason.
So if you had a piece of advice to give to somebody who hasn't started saving for retirement yet, and I realize that younger mode just probably isn't really geared into it, what would that piece of advice be?
That's a good question, too. One of my favorite sayings in the entire world is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Second best time is today.
Yeah.
There are lots of people, whether they're young or older, that just haven't prioritized saving or have focused on a 401k. Fantastic tool, but there is no single tool that will get you through retirement, especially that we're living longer. So my one piece of advice, if you have not started, no matter how old you are, start.
Yep.
We all are going to need money to retire. There is no choice in the matter.
Right.
So, and that means you're going to need an income to save. So make sure you save money, but make sure you protect that income as well, because if you don't have an income coming in, you're never going to save for retirement.
Well, and I know you can't answer this because I can't answer this either, but, I have 2 kids. I'm going to say they're kids. They are adults. And I hope Social Security is going to be around for them. I don't know if that's real. Heck, I'm about ready to jump into that, and I hope it's going to be there when I'm ready here in some years. And so I think now more than ever, and it's never not been important to look at a retirement situation, but I think it's critical that you look at that now. And the earlier you start, I'm hearing my father in my ear here. The earlier you start, the better that you will be. And Dan, really, that's what you're talking about,
100%.
is get it going.
Yep.
And a little bit early can go a long way to some nice monies toward the end.
Well, compound interest is the greatest tool maybe ever when it comes to saving or the use of money. Your ability for a small amount of money compounding year after year after year to become an incredibly large amount of money. What I would recommend for people who say, I don't know about that, Google compound interest calculator. Put a small amount in, give it a small amount of additional contributions to it, and a long period of time to grow. You'll be shocked at how much money that actually turns into.
You bet. I've heard the phrase good debt. Is there really such a thing as good debt?
So there is definitely such a thing as bad debt, right? Credit cards, high interest personal loans, things like that. There are things like mortgages, right? And I'll use that for example. Like I have clients all the time who, have a 3% interest on their mortgage, who come in and they say, well, my mortgage is $1,500, I pay $2,000 because emotionally it feels great to get that paid off, right? I'm with you, I get it. The thing is that I can take that additional $500, and even in a safe bucket that isn't market-based, I can get you 5 to 7% on that money. So I can help, and then you compound on top of the money that earns over time in those years and years and years that it will grow. So while you think, great, I want to pay down the house so then I can really start saving, it's not about the amount, it's about the time. So there is plenty of debt that it's like okay to say, hey, I'm just going to let this ride, paying the minimum. There's some that I can't beat the interest rate, like a credit card, that's 20%. There's nothing I can do to cover that. So you really want to make sure you take care of that debt.
Right. Dan, we've got some people out there that are interested.
Yeah.
They want to talk. They've got a bunch of questions.
Sure.
How do they get a hold of you? And really just start the conversation. That's what Dan is there to give you, is to tell him about, or tell you rather, about the knowledge that Northwestern Mutual has, about what he has in the field, and most importantly, what's important to you. And just to have that cup of coffee, have the conversations. Dan, how would somebody start that process?
So first of all, what's beautiful about Northwestern Mutual, it's over a 160-year-old company. It's a mutual company, so it's owned by our policyholders. So, we don't have this far off, stockholders that we have to answer to. We answer to the people that hold our policies, and so we do a much better job of taking care, in my opinion.
Sure.
Obviously, I believe in it. I work there. But the best way to get a hold of me, you can obviously Google me. I have a web page. Also, you could email me at daniel.haspert@nm.com. Is generally the best way.
And Haspert is spelled?
Haspert.
And then obviously you can also find Dan up on the Chamber website, as he is one of the many members of the Anoka Area Chamber of Commerce. Dan, this was interesting as heck. I hope that you listen, especially on that younger side. I wish that I had done more earlier, and it's so easy because your bucket list of things you want and things that are important to you are there early, and you want it all, and boy, by the time you're on the other end of it, all that stuff kind of fades, and you wish you'd have done more here and done more there. Now, we did jump in early and do some things. Wish we'd have done more, but we did some things, and so we are setting ourselves up to be okay. Trust me, I'm not buying an island in the Bahamas, but the reality is, and this is the classic line that Dan just said, a little bit over a long term can make a difference. And that's what happened to us, and it can happen to you too. He is Dan Haspert. He is with Northwestern Mutual. Hey, Dan, thanks so much for coming.
Happy to be here.
Would you come back sometime down the road and kind of fill everybody in on how this whole thing is going and what changes are out there?
Happy to do it.
All right, we're taking a break, and we come back. We got the crew from Zion Lutheran Church, one of the oldest churches in the region, and if not, the state of Minnesota. And we're going to talk with them and find out what's happening there as we head into summer and the fall. And we'll do it right after this.